When you think of online gaming, where does your mind go? Las Vegas, maybe? Macau? Well, what if I told you the real nerve center, the actual Silicon Valley of the global iGaming world, is a tiny island in the middle of the Mediterranean? Yep, it's Malta. For years, it has set the global benchmark for regulation, creating what's known as the industry's gold standard.
But that begs the question, right? How on earth did this happen? How did a nation that's smaller than most major cities become the undisputed king of a multi-billion-dollar digital industry? Well, I'll tell you this much. It was no accident. It was completely by design. And the results? They're just staggering. Today, iGaming in Malta brings in over 2.9 billion euros a year. To really put that into perspective, that's about 17% of the entire country's GDP. This isn't just a side hustle for them. It's a fundamental pillar of their whole economy. Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with how Malta became this Silicon Valley of gaming. Then we'll get to know the MGA, the Malta Gaming Authority. After that, we'll walk through the grueling licensing process, paying close attention to their anti-money laundering firewall. And finally, we'll stack up the incredible benefits against the very steep costs. So, Malta's story here starts with a really bold move. Let's rewind to 2004. The same year they joined the European Union, they became the very first EU country to create a proper legal framework for online gaming. This wasn't just a small step, it was a giant leap that put them way ahead of the curve. But, it wasn't a perfect straight line to the top. After that amazing start in 2004, they kind of got bogged down in red tape around the mid-2010s, and it started to hurt their reputation. But here's the key part. Instead of sailing, they adapted. In 2018, they ripped up the old rulebook and did a complete overhaul, which created the modern, streamlined system they have today. It's a real story of evolution. Right at the heart of this entire ecosystem is one incredibly powerful organization, the Malta Gaming Authority, or MGA. You can think of them as the gatekeepers, the enforcers, and really the architects of the industry's integrity. Everything, and I mean everything, flows through them. And this is what makes them so different from a lot of other regulators out there. They don't see themselves as the bad guys. Their whole philosophy is about partnership. They genuinely want good, honest operators to do well, because a successful industry is a healthy one. It's this kind of cooperative but firm approach that's their secret sauce. And this really gets to the core of their two big jobs. On one hand, they're trying to help businesses thrive, but on the other hand, they are fierce protectors of the public. Their mission is crystal clear: keep players safe, keep crime out, and make absolutely sure that every single game is fair. It's that balance that builds all the trust. So, how do you get your hands on this super prestigious license? Well, you have to run the gauntlet. The application process is famous for being incredibly tough, and it's designed that way, on purpose, to weed out anyone who isn't totally serious, compliant, and well-funded. Earning that MGA badge is a real mark of honor. The whole MGA process is built on these 4 pillars of scrutiny. First, there's the fit and proper test, where they do deep background checks on every single important person involved. Second, they literally dissect your business plan to make sure it's solid. Third, all your tech has to pass an independent audit. And finally, they review every single one of your compliance procedures, with a huge focus on player protection and anti-money laundering. And that brings us to one of the most critical parts of the MGA's reputation: its anti-money laundering firewall. Think about it. In an industry that moves billions of digital dollars around the globe, stopping financial crime isn't just a nice-to-have, it's the absolute foundation of trust. So the heart of their strategy is this thing called customer due diligence, or CDD. This is not optional. Every MGA licensed operator is legally required to verify who their players are. This is the first line of defense, making sure that shady or anonymous people can't use the platform to move dirty money. And the system has these automatic triggers built right in. The second a player's total deposits hit 2,000 euros, an alarm bell goes off. That automatically triggers enhanced due diligence. It forces the operator to dig way deeper, asking for proof of where that player's funds and wealth actually came from. It's a proactive approach designed to catch crime before it gets out of hand. So, after all that scrutiny, all that money, and all that time, why do hundreds of the world's biggest gaming companies put themselves through this gauntlet? The answer is pretty simple, really. The benefits of holding the gold standard are just massive. One of the biggest practical perks came out of that 2018 overhaul. They took the old, complicated license system and simplified it into just four main types. This means an operator can get a Type 1 for casino games and then easily add a Type 2 for a sportsbook, all under the same main license. It's just so much more flexible and efficient.
When you really break down what makes this license so valuable, it all comes down to five key pillars. But look at that chart. Player trust is, by far, the biggest piece of the pie. Seeing that MGA logo on a website is an instant sign of safety and fairness. After that, you've got access to the huge EU market, better relationships with banks, big tax advantages, and a whole local ecosystem of talent and tech. And yeah, let's be clear about those tax advantages because they're a huge deal. The official corporate tax rate is 35%, but Malta has this unique tax refund system. For profits that are paid out, this can bring the effective tax rate all the way down to just 5%. That is one of the lowest in all of Europe. It's a massive financial incentive. But prestige always has a price. And to give you the full picture, we have to talk about the serious costs and headaches involved. Getting and keeping this license is not cheap, and it is not easy. The trade-off is pretty clear. The pros are incredibly powerful. You get an unmatched reputation, access to the EU, and better financial partners. But the cons are just as real. The costs are sky high. The bureaucracy can be a nightmare. The application can take over a year. And the compliance rules are super strict and unforgiving. So, at the end of the day, this license really isn't for everyone. It's designed for established, well-funded companies. I mean, just to get through the application, you're looking at tens of thousands in legal fees, on top of needing up to 100,000 euros in cash just sitting in the bank before you even get started. An industry expert really summed it up perfectly with this quote. Sure, there are cheaper and faster licenses you can get from other places, but they just don't get this same respect from players, banks, or business partners. The risk you run is that you end up having to get a more reputable license later anyway. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. As players and governments all over the world demand more accountability, more player protection, and more transparency, is the tough, compliance-heavy model that Malta pioneered no longer just one choice among many, but maybe the inevitable future for the entire industry?